one for pretty much any design from Meaning of Life Designs is always going to be a placement line to show you where to position the background fabric on a piece of stabilizer in the hoop. By hooping a piece of stabilizer, we can keep our background fabric much smaller because we don't need to have it fit into the hoop. So save a ton of money and fabric there. Now you're going to have some kind of a crosshair. Sometimes it's going to be a plus sign like this. It might be on the diagonal, more of an X like that. It might be a T. It could be anything, but there's going to be at least two lines crossing. And what you see on the stabilizer from color number 1 is going to match up with what you've got on your background fabric from marking the stabilizer and then doing the basing lines. So the trick is to get that intersection there aligned with this intersection here and all of the lines matching up. It turns out to be really easy to do. All it takes is a pin and my favorite tool, the June Taylor Cushioned Quilters Square and Blocker. Now, one of the things I like about this board, it's a padded ironing board. There is no cutting mat on the back, but I can stick a pin all the way in and it will actually come out the other side. So you want to make sure that you're not doing this on your best dining room table. You definitely want to have a cutting mat on the underneath it so that you can protect whichever table you're working on. So I am going to take a pin and I'm going to push it through the intersection marked on the stabilizer. Now this is one of the coasters to stitch up the poinsettia. It could be one of the doves. Any design, doesn't matter which one it is, you might have a lot more intersections, and in just a few moments I'm going to show you how we're going to align the center of the complete Peace Wreath with the holly ring and the dove ring. Exact same situation going on. You want to be sure to look at the instructions for your specific project and make sure that you know which intersection goes where. So you've got a pin through where the two lines intersect. We're going to take this exact same pin and put it through the intersection stitched on your stabilizer and then push it into the board as vertically as possible. And you can see this now gives us a really nice pivot point so that we can get the background fabric lined up. Now I like to put the hoop onto the board so that my placement line is actually aligned with the center grid line, and that makes it kind of easy to see we're actually straight there and we're straight there. Otherwise you can just flip up. You know what? I have two pieces of stabilizer going on here. Let's get rid of that one and let's try this again. So I'm going to put the pin through the intersection there. I'm going to put that pin through the intersection there. Got our pivot point. We can lift this up and you can see that we can rotate that as much as we need to. We can do a double check there to make sure that we are good. I like to check on all four directions just by turning the paper back or turning the background fabric back. And then you can either use tape along any edges where you are where you have excess stabilizer. So I would put tape, Scotch Magic tape, that is all the way along the top, all the way along the bottom. That will hold the background fabric securely in place. Or I will use a couple of pins. So I'll put a couple of pins in the side. Now these pins are going in at a really shallow angle here. And then I'm just going to lift the hoop up so that I can slide my fingers underneath. Same pressure from the top as from the bottom. And I can pop those pins like that so that the background fabric is nicely secured onto the stabilizer and the hoop. Now color number 2 is always going to be a basting line, or at least it's going to start out with a basting line so that that secures the fabric onto the hoop. One check that you can do to make sure everything is in the right place, flip the hoop upside down and you should be able to see through the stabilizer to the lines that you've got marked on the back of the background fabric, and you can see if you need to do any alignment. Now you might need to hold this up to a light source so that you can see through it. This is actually looking pretty good, so I am happy with that. If I was going to stitch this, I would be off to the machine to continue stitching. As it happens, I'm actually going to take this off because I'm going to be stitching the poinsettia into the center of my quilt that has the dove ring already stitched up and the holly ring. So I'm going to go and get that, and I will show you how we're going to do the exact same positioning technique, just with a different, bigger project. So this is the complete Peace Wreath, and we've got the holly circle stitched up. We've got the doves all stitched up too. The last thing that I'm going to stitch is the poinsettia in the center. And you can see I have the marking lines here. And if I flip this over, I've got the marking lines on the back as well. So just as we did with that small piece, we are now going to get this intersection right here aligned with this intersection right here. Exact same process. We're going to take a pin. I'm going to put that through the center there. Now I'm going to flip that up out of the way, find the center here, push the pin through the center so that now I've got my pivot point, and then making sure that the fabric at the pin is pushed right down onto the stabilizer in the hoop. We're going to lift that up and see, we actually did a really good job right then of getting that straight. So I'm going to pop a pin there. If you want to, you can lift up and make sure that your pin is right on the placement line on the stabilizer in the hoop. We're good there too. I'm going to pop a pin right there. Don't know if you can see on the camera that we're actually good right there as well. And 3 out of 4, the fourth one should also be good. If you need to adjust by rotating the background fabric, then you can absolutely do that. Now you can see we have absolutely no stabilizer showing, so we are going to pin everything onto the hoop. I'm going to leave those pins in for just the moment and use a few more pins around the outside edges to hold everything in place. And I'm pushing the pins in again so that they are at a very shallow angle. They're almost flat. Now that we've got those two in on the side, I'm going to take that one, put it down there, take this one, put it up here. We can actually take these 3 from across the center. Now I'm going to lift up the hoop really gently, pull the pin out of the board so that I can use as much pressure with my fingers above as I've got my fingers below to get the pins through the background fabric. Let's do this one. That one. Let's come up here. And this one here. Now it's worthwhile trying this on a smaller project first, just to get the hang of getting everything aligned, but the technique is exactly the same no matter which design you are using. So for instance, on for the doves we had a 4-inch grid, so we had a vertical horizontal center line, 4 inches to the left and right, another 4 inches to the left and right, so 8 inches from the center, and then we also had 12 inches from the center as well. And so each of these doves has its own placement lines. You'll find those specific placement lines in the instructions. Let's flip this over, have a quick look at the back. You should be able to see the placement lines that are marked on the background fabric and see if we are in fact aligned with the placement lines on the stabilizer and the hoop. It's looking pretty good to me right now. So I am going to take this to the machine and stitch up the first few colors of the poinsettia. There'll be some quilting to go around the outside of it. Then we'll start getting some placement lines for the leaves and the first set of petals, which actually are regular appliques. And once I've got those guys in place, I'll come back to you and we'll talk about how to get the three-dimensional petals in place.